like your marketing strategies or where you're going to perform your music. If you have a target audience, start with the target audience. Who is this for? Then create a value for them. For those who are coming and those who are already there. Don't focus mostly on the numbers. Focus on the value you're creating for the people who will come.
Okay, let's forget the numbers. Let's focus on the value right now. Sometimes when you're creating content, there's what's the popular stuff, like maybe people right now are talking about that nga thing, that ngamwaya, is it ngamwaya, that Terence creative stuff that's going on right now, and that's what's in trend. So as a creative, sometimes you feel like, okay, maybe this is an opportunity for me to finally break. So you start, dancing to the popular tune, and you start creating content according to that. And maybe that's not exactly the kind of content that you have. So where is the line between, as a creative, how then do you choose? Is it time for me now to start making the popular stuff, or to stay true to my brand and to my brand values? Because sometimes the popular stuff can help to get you known, and then you can always delete that stuff and say, I just got here through sheer hard work.
But if you create like the kind of popular stuff to get audience, that's what they'll expect from you every time. And I saw this when I keep changing my Instagram a lot. There's a time I deleted all my pictures and started again. Even when I was transitioning from being a model, transitioning from being a model to being a writer. When I was a model, I used to have like 1,700 pictures,
What?
And my whole account just looked like a shrine for myself. It's just it was. So when I tried, and people followed me because of that. They wanted to see nice pictures of me. They wanted to see nice pictures of clothes. Sure.
Okay.
So when I transitioned, I started posting like book reviews and writing poetry and writing short stories. I was bleeding followers left, right, and center because that's not what they came here for.
No, we didn't.
So
I'm here for the legs.
Decide if that's your thing. If you're gonna be like people who jump on trends, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because even the thing you're saying about with Terence Creative, it's because of the wash story that was going on. He jumped on what was trending, and he made something from it, and it was a good thing. So decide for yourself if you're gonna come up with a style. This is my style, and I'm going to be consistent in this. If people come to your page, somebody like, let's talk about like Rick's poet. People go to his page purely for conversations, and it's mostly men. He's created a safe space from Masculinity, the podcast. He's created a safe space for men to talk about mental health and abuse, maybe during childhood and things like that. So people go to him majorly for that, and that is something he's been doing consistently, and you can see even his entire audience is just based around that. You can have other but people go to him for that. Even when he posts like the question box, ask me anything, even the questions, everything is around that. So pick your style, something you can be consistent in, because once you change from that, people are gonna want what they came for. Otherwise they're gonna go find it somewhere else. So once you decide, stick to it, stick with it.
Pick your style and be consistent with it. There was something while you were talking, and I remembered, say for instance Rick's poet, who is doing a pretty good job on masculinity. Right now masculinity is all the rage. I don't know why. I think there's a shortage of men, or handsome men, like us. So I don't know. It's tough right now because the content, there's so much content around masculinity. Maybe I should have Rick's poet speak about masculinity.
You should. He's interesting.
He is, eh? What do you think about masculinity yourself? Mansplain to us.
I agree with what he's trying to push, and it's that there is no formula on masculinity. You can't say this is masculinity, this is not. This like the blueprint, but a lot of things are customizable. And he's allowing people to explore how to be masculine in whatever that means to you. So my opinion on masculinity is that it's very customizable. It's depends on your experiences, even where you live in the world. A lot of things, you as a person, your interests, your dreams, your goals, things you enjoy, all that come together to make your like brand of masculinity. It's highly customizable.
Do you know there's a book, How to Be a Woman, written by a man?
I actually read a lot of books about women stuff written by men.
Yes.
And I roll my eyes a lot when I read such books, but that's a story for another day.
That's the price of freedom. You know, if there's no freedom without responsibility. So for young people, when you are performing out there, when you're making these connections that help to get you, out there. For me, if let's say, when people come to the show, they tell me, you need to network, you need to do this and this and this. But say I'm not in Nairobi, say I want to perform with Vickie on her stage, but then I'm located somewhere in Busia, or they are on the border of Mandera. By the way, Mandera has good poets. I think so.
I would.
They have bangers content. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I'm there, how then do I network? How then do I, be able to share? Because you can tell me to come to the show, you can tell me to move from Mandera and come to Nairobi, to show you how much I really want this. Those things that we are told. If you really want this job, you will walk from Kitengela to town. I'm like, no, that's not how. Jesus already did all the walking. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how would you rather, what are the tactics that you have used personally to be able to network with these other creatives, because our industry is a bit small, and people are very selfish with their work. At least that's much I know. Mm-hmm. How then are you able to at least, even if you're not invited to the table, that you're just around the room? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank God for the era of social media. Let me tell you, thank God for the era of social media.
Yes.
I'd say find a lot of people you look up to.
Yes.
And would I say make friends or learn from them? If not from a personal one-on-one kind of thing, learn from their work, go through their previous works, watch their growth, ask questions, interact. If you can't do it all, like come to Nairobi and perform in these shows, interact with these people. Yeah. I know I grew from performing under people I admired, and I'm glad I was in Nairobi because I got to go to these shows, I got to curtain reads for them, I got to all those things, one-on-one, even conversations, how to write, how to own the stage when you're up there. I'm glad I got to experience that. I'm grateful for that. But if that is not possible for you, make use of social media. Like go to YouTube, watch their videos, listen to podcasts like this, things like that, so that you can customize and come up with your thing, from working and listening to different. Don't go with just one person. There's a danger of copy pasting. When you go with just one person, you kind of sound like them. You start trying to recite your poems like them. You start trying to write like them, and it's a bias a lot of people don't see. Even when you're mentoring people, you as the mentor, you don't see like you're trying to imprint yourself on them. You think you're helping. So I'd say go with a lot of people, like 5 or 6 different ones from all kinds, so that you can, before you decide this is my thing, this is where I want to be, or if you're customizing your own thing, you can borrow from here, borrow from there. Look at a lot of people. Don't go with just one person.
Don't go with just one person. Yeah. Now, have you made money from your art?
Yes.
What's the... No, not as the highest. What's the lowest amount you've ever made?
What's the lowest amount?
Yeah.
From my art. I mean, I've been paid exposure.
Ooh, haven't we all? I'll
say that was because it's basically at 0.0. If you were to draw a scale, I'd say that's the lowest.
Yeah. How then do you? Because I had a guest. He's called JP, and he's a flautist, and he was telling me sometimes when he gets invited for events to perform for free, he looks at the bigger picture where probably this is a new audience that do not know me, and in the long run, if he's playing the long game, he'll get more value from going for this free event than even for this paid event. For you, how then do you are you able to identify which opportunities to say yes to and which opportunities to say no to? Because as a creative, sometimes someone will come and give you, 5K, and you're there like, shit, I'm almost rent on late. Maybe, there are some things that you wanted to do with that money, and this has come at the right time, but they're giving you such kidogo amount, but your problems are so many. You're like, you know what, let me sell my soul to the devil. How are you able to stay true to yourself and, just balance the skills?
When you're starting out, you're going to do a lot of free work.
Oh, of course.
You're going to do a lot of exposure work. But it will get to a point where if you call me and you're like, hey, Vickie, I have this event and I'd like for you to perform. There's a reason you called me.
Yes.
There's you've gone through my work, maybe you've attended a few and you think this is the best fit. A lot of event organizers usually have a budget for artists. They just don't they want to see if they can get away with not paying you.
Agency people.
I think that's what they do. They try to see if they can get away because they have a budget.
Yes.
And once they start, if you're organizing an event, you think grounds are gonna cost me this much, marketing is gonna cost me this much. Now that the people are coming to my event, what are they coming to do? They're coming to enjoy poetry. Right?
Yes.
You're going to sell tickets and make money from people who are coming to enjoy poetry, but you don't want to pay the people who are going to deliver that. You see, there's so there's always a budget. So it will get to a point where when you start out, it's okay to do free work. Let people know you, let people hear your sound, let people see your art, so that they can decide, oh, I like his work so much, let me invite him to my show. So exposure, lazima utafanya kazi exposure for a while. But it will get to a point where hata wewe mwenyewe you'll feel it in you that the kind of value I bring shouldn't just be for thank you, God bless you. I mean, it takes time to do it. It takes time to do it. It takes a lot of time. Like people say, you're just on stage for 2 minutes. Why are you asking for so much? You're just there for 10 minutes. Why are you asking for so much? I'm not asking there for the 10 minutes I've been on that stage. I'm asking the amount of money for the 5 months it took me to write, edit, memorize, and perfect this performance. I am not asking for money for the 10 minutes I am on stage. For even creating a brand as a performer, and people know, oh my God, his show so and so will be performing. Oh, I must go to that one. Like that is somebody who's willing to spend money to come and see you. You see, it didn't just happen. You did something. You worked on your brand, you worked on your content, you worked on that particular performance you're coming to show. So when people are like, oh, you're only going to be there for 2 minutes, what's the point? Just take this 500 bob, or just take this 1,000 bob. You're like, no, I'm not charging you for the 10 minutes I'm on stage. I'm charging you for the 1 month of sleepless nights took me to write a poem on heartbreak, and editing it and sending it to a few people to see how they feel about it, and now memorizing it and preparing rehearsals for this show. That's what I am charging you for.
Exactly. You're charging for the iceberg, not the tip. When you were talking, you reminded me of that time I did some work for someone. Like, done this so fast. I was like, I practiced a lot. Then this is not hard for you. I almost slapped them, but I'm not a violent man.
This is not hard for you.
This is so hard. But for creatives, saying no is one of the things that we fear. Many people tell us no, and because we probably know the value of a yes, we hardly ever say no to people. Like people can just come and say, Vickie, I like your work. I think we can do something with you in future. So we are investing in our future, Vickie. Look at the bigger picture. And you end up saying yes, even when deep down, you should say no. And I don't know the last time you said no. When was the last time you said no?
It wasn't recently, but one of my biggest reasons for saying no was I didn't feel like I was gonna bring anything to the table for the people who are going to be there. It was the wrong crowd for me, wrong audience for what I was doing. There's nothing I would have done for them. You ask them, so what kind of audience are you targeting? What's the vibe of your show? What theme are you going to be talking about? And you sit down and you're honest with yourself. There's nothing I'm going to do for these people. They will not relate with my work. They will not enjoy it. It's going to go over their heads, or they're just going to be like, what the hell?
Who is this?
Hatutaki hii, tunataka ile ingine, you know. So if I feel like there's nothing I'm going to do for you, I'll probably say no.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but it's weird being on stage and nobody can relate. Nobody's understanding what you're talking about. They're like, the entire time. So to avoid that, I'm just like, I don't think this is the best opportunity for me, but thank you, but I don't think this is the best
you don't
opportunity
kill people.
for me.
I know a lot of people who can. So my grandmother died and we will not be available that day.
No, I don't, because the guy will be like, we can actually, because it's not set in stone. How about the following weekend? I'm like,
so you have to kill another person.
I'm out of lies. Just be honest. I don't think this is the opportunity for me.
Yeah. Do you feel? Have you ever felt like you betrayed your work in one point or another?
Yes. Oh God, yes. When it comes to writing for corporate gigs, or like for, is it political gigs? Can we call it that? There's some
election period. You're
given a topic to write on. Our government and service delivery, how people are satisfied. Sijui for Madaraka Day, and you're like, I don't think so. People are not satisfied with the service delivery, but
there
because
are people are satisfied.
You ushakula pesa. Let's start with that.
Ndio hiyo shida creatives.
Ushachukua deposit ya kazi and you have to deliver, and you can tell when somebody is performing something that they're not believing in. Because when you see especially spoken word artists, they're so passionate on stage, and they're like, freedom fighters. But when it's something that it sounds like a speech, you're like, so I have betrayed my work a couple of times for money. But it is what it is.
How do you? No, it's not what it's.
I needed to survive at that time. I couldn't be like. Actually, I was thinking.
Yes.
No, they were like, we need you to write us an ad. It should sound like a poem, and it should be praising 1, 2, 3. And you're like, sorry, what now?
How much for this?
Okay, I'm gonna write that for you. But you can tell afterwards you're not even happy. It's poetry or pieces or work I've not performed anywhere else. Like after I deliver it to the client, I am done with it.
A friend of mine was recently commissioned to do some script writing for a certain TV station, and she called me and she was asking me, so I'm late on rent and this guy is about to save my ass. However, what they want me to write is below me. It's below my creative level, and I feel like I'm lying to myself. What would you have done? So initially myself I had done a project before that, but I did it under a different name, like how Oscar Wilde does his thing under Mark Twain and shit like that. So whenever I feel like a project is not for me but I need the money, it's because you can only be a Christian or a Buddhist for so long before you start dying, and Jesus is like, yo bro, I gave you opportunities. And but you never took them. So how then do you deal with the guilt, the aftermath? Because I know right now she's crying in her pillows, oh my God, I lied to myself, but she needed the money, How do you deal with that guilt? Because there are things that because we creatives, I know, are basically feelers, and when you're invested in something, when your emotions are there, and then you have to lie to, because you can lie to everyone else, but when you are there in the mirror with the man or the woman in the mirror, you really can't lie. How do you deal with that guilt? How do you move past it?
I remind myself why I had to do it. There was this one time, and it's a project I actually had to not turn down per se, but I had to get somebody else who believed in it more than I did, because it was about they were saying during the lockdown and COVID and the whole economic downfall, people are hopeless. People are going into not depression per se, but we're losing that, the Kenyan resilience, the Kenyan spirit. And they were like, write us something showing how our government is helping people, disbursing money and the vaccine, and write about all those things, the successes of our government during this COVID time to give people hope.
Yes.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, you want me? You want me to do what now?
Yeah.
So I called somebody who genuinely believes the government efforts, and I was like, help me.
Yeah.
I want to be like you.
Show me what you've seen, Sensei.
Yeah, so but it's remind yourself why you had to do it.
Yeah.
You know, you may feel bad, and the world is cruel, let me be honest with you.
It is.
Your landlord won't understand that.
She won't.
My heart was not in it.
Shout out Mama Caro.
You got a job that would give you money to pay rent, but you said no because your heart was not in it.
Yeah.
You're not going to understand
that's
that.
That's not
so
how life works.
If it ever comes down to that point, remind yourself why you had to do it. Be like, I was going to get thrown out. So
this is how adulting works. So what you are saying is that you are the reason why I've been seeing some very weird TV adverts, and I'm like,
well,
okay, I'll just take it. I'll take
can I shift the blame to the next person?
Yes,
the person who believed so much and convinced me?
Please do.
Or the person who made me write it?
Always pass the buck.
Yes. So
pass the buck to someone else.
we can blame one of the people who convinced me to write it, or the person who gave me the job.
Yeah.
But, I remind myself I needed something important.
Yeah. It's fine, no problem. We understand. Adulting is pretty tough, and COVID has taught us that you have to do what you have to do to survive.
Yeah.
Especially
as creatives.
It's now when personally, while I was growing up, I always felt that there are those Damascus moments that you have in your life that changes the way you've been seeing things. Mm-hmm. For me, mine happened in 2018. No, not 2018. 2019 thereabouts, when I lost a few people who were close to me, and it's hard to recover from that, because then you've been living your life to a certain extent in a different way, and then when shit happens, when whatever happens, you have to reassess everything. You have to look yourself in the mirror. You have to face yourself, and you're like, okay, we can't live like this anymore. And for me, that was a Damascus moment, and I was Paul. Was it Saul? Then I became Paul. Now I started seeing there. I was like, hey, Ashoya, these things don't work like this. So I don't know if you've gone through the same. If you've had a moment in your life that you are sure your life will end up like this, but then when that event happened, you're like, okay, it's time for me to reassess. Yeah,
I think I've had a moment like that where I'll say I used to exist in blissful ignorance. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, and I was okay. I thought everything was okay. But once I became like self-aware, and I started adulting and seeing the world for what it is, my eyes kind of opened. I was like, wow, so this is how things work. Okay. So I'd say on my personal journey, not like my work or my art, but on my personal journey, I've had that moment where everything is like, oh my God, now I can see. And I'd call it growing up, because previously I was existing blissfully ignorant. I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought the world was this beautiful, perfect place. And then you become so aware, you start seeing things, you start hearing conversations that previously you were too young to engage in, and you're like, so this is how things work. Okay. All right. Okay, so I feel like I've had that moment, and it's almost around the same time with you, 2019 thereabout. It was 20. When did COVID started in 2020?
March.
Yeah. So it was 2019 November. Yes. That is where I had my moment, 2019 November, and a lot of things shifted for me personally on my personal journey. And if it's a Damascus moment, that was it.
Yeah. The biggest scar that I carry is that my relationship with my mom could have always been better, but it was not to be. Although we are still talking stage. We are trying to figure out things. And for me, I think whenever I write, I think of her most of the time when I'm doing my pieces. I don't know for you, what's the biggest scar that you carry?
Biggest scar that I carry.
To make it emotional.
Biggest emotional scar that I carry. It's a scar, really. I think it's a thing that defines me. Not really a scar, but it's also a strained relationship with my dad, not my mom. My dad in this case. And it's influenced a lot of my opinions, my ideas, my beliefs. Before I went on this journey to like personally heal and get over our bad relationship, I had a very low opinion of men. That has kind of sort of changed, but you can still see where I'm coming from.
I'm doing well, guys.
From like a useless person, like it's men were just like, you know, unnecessary. We can do without you guys, you know. That's where I was coming from. I was like, you guys are not necessary. Men are. I was a very loud champion of the men are trash battalion, but so my strained relationship with my father has influenced a lot of even my relationships, and I wouldn't call it a scar, but it's one of those things that define me emotionally. Like I get triggered so easily, and sometimes you can see me projecting that even when I write. I have a few poems speaking about my father, and you can just tell this person has a very low opinion of men. And it comes from that. It stems from, and it's something I've had to consciously work on. It's affected a lot of my relationships where you're dating a guy, but you have absolutely no respect for him as a man. I was like, you know, it's. I have a boyfriend because it's nice to have a boyfriend. But when it comes to even the way you speak to him, shows that there's no respect, there's no regard. You're just like, So it's not really a scar. It's something that defines me and how I interact with men in general, even with the world, even in my writing. It's my strained relationship with my father.
And for creatives, relationships are very important because our stories cannot exist in a vacuum. It's the people that we've interacted with who have happened to define our journey. And for you being your father, and you know, it's a tricky situation, especially if you're trying now to marry the two. How then do I balance my work? And then there's this, I think for me it has always stemmed from a point of, why couldn't I ever be, you know, how do I go into this without now? I'm like balancing tears here in studio, guys. How do I then, let me find the right words. How do I show my mother that it's nothing personal, but the relationship that we have will always be strained in as much as we try and bring it together. And I feel like sometimes when I'm doing my work, I'm like, there's something, there's a certain that's what I pronounce. Meaning Mluya. There's a certain vulnerability that
there you go. I wanted to help you, but I'm glad I didn't.
Nitaenda nikule, like I said, food. So there's a certain vulnerability that, you know, you are writing or your work lacks because you can't be honest with yourself. And you remember when we started talking this conversation, honesty was quite important, and you also mentioned about it. I don't know if there's a time that, you know, you had to let it go and you put it on paper and you showed it to the world. I once wrote an article about my family and I never wanted to publish it. But after I published it, I felt like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulder. I don't know about you, if you've gone through the same thing.
I'd say the vulnerability is what adds like spice to it, you know? You take it away, like you're saying, you try to make it not be personal. But I feel like that is where I'd contradict with you. Let it be personal. It doesn't have to be a bad thing that it's personal. Let it be personal. I let my pain and my vulnerability show in my work because it's I'm looking to speak to you. I'm looking to speak to somebody else who's going through the same thing, another millennial with daddy issues. So I can't act like everything is perfect.
It's not.
I can't be like, oh, it's all roses, or I don't want to touch that. I don't want to touch. The more honest you get, the easier it is for other people to relate. You know, they'll be like, wow, if she can come clean about projecting anger because of her daddy issues, projecting anger in her relationships because of her daddy issues, or because she does not respect men, if she can be honest about something like that, it even calls you to be honest with yourself, you know. You can't be like, mi nakuanga tu na anger issues. No, there's something, there's that's not